What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Daredevil, Born Again, Season 2, we'll call it, because I was waiting for a 2 or something and nothing. It was just Born Again.
Born Again again?
Yeah. It premiered last night. I was waiting anticipatingly and excited to see how this season would look and feel compared to what we got last season. Brian, I assume that you saw it as well.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think, and what have people been saying?
Well, reviews have been very good. Reviews have definitely been a step up from season 1. So I think what I don't know is how many of the episodes were screened for critics. It wasn't the entire season, right? So you're getting those reviews based on probably 3 episodes, let's call it 3, maybe 4. But I would suspect, for what and kind of what I've seen, is a lot of people are responding positively to just not having the mashup of 2 different shows in one, right? It's a single vision. It feels like it's going to be that way. And it's someone in Dario Scartaponi who obviously ran the Punisher show on Netflix. So, you're hoping for something tonally that feels closer to what we became accustomed to. So I think that's what critics are responding to. I have to admit, it's a little tough getting only 1 episode of this. I was thinking back to the Netflix days, and I was like, how much extra did we enjoy that? Because you could watch all 13 or 6 of them in a row. And I feel like it's not small. It actually really added a material amount to my enjoyment to that. And so I got to the end of it, what I thought was a pretty decent premiere, and I was like, man,
I wish I had another one.
Yeah, like why I gotta wait? Why I gotta wait for even 2 more of these? Yeah. So.
Why can't y'all do a Wonder Man or Echo or Ironheart? Release all of them. But no.
So I generally liked it. I thought it was. I mean, it felt more. Let's put it this way: I enjoyed this premiere certainly more than last season's premiere. In terms of just a little bits of action we got. There wasn't as much bad CGI to rely on. I liked a little bit of the board setting and the little teases with what's going on with Kingpin and this Mr. Charles, the Matthew Lillard character. And, you dropped a little Valentina Easter egg for us in there too. Just like the little things. And then you get obviously the Bullseye kind of kiss at the end, which you kind of knew was coming. But so no, I thought this was a pretty cohesive way to start the season and get us interested in what's going on. So
what I enjoyed, I think most, Brian, was the fighting scenes, yo. What he was doing and how he was doing it just looked 10 times better than what they did last time. And I was like, yes, this is what I was expecting last season, but we didn't get it as much as we are getting it now. And I expect to see a lot more in different episodes. But that is what I enjoyed the most when I was watching it.
They did a nice job with obviously his weapon, his staff. That's not all physically there, right? That's a little bit of visual effects. But for some reason, this iteration felt much more real than when he was doing stuff with his weapons last season. Like it felt like he was holding it, snapping it, the angle the camera was placed. So when he's fighting the anti-vigilante task force, like, oh yeah, it feels like something made impact with that guy's helmet and stuff like that. So I agree with you. It felt like a little more the acrobatics were back, which is something I think
yes.
When you go back to season 1, I mean, he is with no weapons. He's somersaulting and flipping and jumping off walls and doing some very martial arts hybrid stuff that he kind of dispensed with last season. And this felt much more like, okay, yeah, he is the baddest guy in the room, and that's the way it should be. So I agree with you, and it felt real. I did notice, so the one thing I will say, I think is very conscious, and I'm going to put a TBD on it. They don't want this show to be quite as dark, literally, as a Netflix show. If you look at every scene, there's a light, a street lamp. There's always something that's kind of illuminating what's going on. And I recently did like a rewatch on the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, and that show had no fear of almost seemingly being like, nah, it's a dark alley. There's no light in here. If you can't see everything that's going on, that's your problem. It's dark.
Yeah.
This show seems to be very cognizant of wanting you to see what's going on. And like, I'm just circling that as a, let's see if that winds up being better, same, or we wind up missing the dark a little bit by the time we get to the end of this. Because I did notice it a little. Like when he's on the ship, it's like every part of that ship there's a light like right there to light up what he's doing and the characters in the scene. So just a little thing I noticed.
Yeah, this episode definitely felt sort of like a continuation from what we got in from season 3. Kingpin still looking huge and still formidable and still as menacing and in control. This guy, what's his name again? He was in I don't know if seen Cross. Have you
No,
seen Cross?
no, I'm not.
See, so the new guy, what's his? I forget his name. The one that was talking to Kingpin and Vanessa at the dinner table.
Oh, Matthew Lillard, Mr. Charles.
Yes, Mr. Charles.
Yeah.
He was in Cross as well.
Oh, okay.
So I was surprised.
That's not what I know him from. He was from.
Yeah.
He is the
He's
original
from Scream
Scooby-Doo
and Shaggy.
He's the original live action Shaggy. That's what I remember him from.
Yeah. But he seems to be getting a lot of work after Quentin Tarantino sort of went after him as well at one point. But interested to see how far he lasts with Kingpin. But I like where they are right now. Some people were saying that it was too slow. I'm like, yo, it's the first episode, man. What do you want?
Really? People thought it was slow?
It was a dude that I was watching on Instagram saying that it was he liked the show. He said it was a little bit too slow for him, and it was like, yo, this is the first episode. Yo, what do you want? What do you want?
I also feel like, if we're being fair, in the Netflix series with 13 episodes a season definitely took its time.
Absolutely.
And I think you could make an argument that 13 was maybe at points too long. Those were 13 1-hour episodes for the most part. So, I mean, this show by its very definition is only going for 8. I mean, they're shortening that already for you. I didn't have a pacing issue with this with this premiere, especially because we'll get into it. There's still a lot they're trying to tie together. And I gotta be honest, man, the knowledge that this is headed towards Spider-Man's world is just in the back of my mind watching this entire thing play out, because I'm just on the lookout and trying to file away things for like, okay, when we get to the Punisher special, okay, when we get to Brand New Day, like I'm looking for the connective tissue now in a way that I didn't care about it before. And that is kind of cool. Your point on Mr. Charles, I did have a quote from Vincent D'Onofrio on this, which I thought was amazing. So he talks about the character and the actor in Matthew Lillard and the struggle of differentiating the two. So he said about Mr. Charles, it's never happened before on this show, but it's happened with other characters in my career. My character finds him so annoying. And I remember reading the script and I'm like, I got to do a scene with effing Charles. Like, I hate that effing guy. And it's weird because when I see Matthew, we give each other hugs. To your point, like he's wanting to convey this sense of just distaste for this guy, but I have to have him around. Yeah.
Yep. It's the same in Cross if you ever get to see the second season. I also enjoyed the special effects, not the special effects, but the effects they used to hone in on his abilities. I think was done well with the aspect ratio widening at some points.
It's a smart use of TV, right? That's one of those things that in a movie theater would probably look a little jarring, but you can do it on a nice sort of flat screen. You can do that. So no, I agree. I don't think this is fair. Like I when you go back to season 1 of the Netflix show, because he's so unfinished as Daredevil when that show begins, there's very little time spent in terms of him being like a true superhero. Like the hallway fight, he spends as much time kind of panting and leaning against the wall as he does kind of, doing cool. This one, they are acknowledging like, dude, he's a hero. And he gets a couple moments where he does hero stuff and he strikes a little, I think what Yelena Belova would say, you're a little bit of a poser sometimes with kind of how you end up. I'm okay with that. He's got to be, he's got to, at some point at this point, he's reached a maturity where you would expect him to have that kind of experience and be a bit more of a hero look. So I didn't have a problem with it. Let's stay on the Matthew Lillard thing, that Mr. Charles, only because of this looping in of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, a character that I have to be honest, I have not really enjoyed that much. I haven't loved her portrayal of this character. but they are clearly wanting her to be in the background of this show. What's your reaction to that choice? As I don't know if she'll be in this season, I'm kind of not expecting it, but just the idea that she is pulling the strings of something in this world.
Is the connectivity part of it, right? Into all the worlds that we are already familiar with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Thunderbolts and all these other things. There is some connectivity, obviously, and perhaps we never know who's going to show up in what. So I guess that touch is not necessarily necessary, but is interesting to know that that's what's happening.
Do you think Kingpin knows who that is on any level?
I don't think so.
I don't either. Because I was trying to put together, like, is that in any way why he tolerates Mr. Charles? Like, he's aware of someone behind him who's more formidable. But I couldn't come up with a good reason why he would know her specifically already.
He just knows that there's some bigger players involved that he wasn't perhaps aware of, and he has to just play ball until he is knowledgeable of what's or who's behind the scene, you know?
Mhm. Now he never, for example, he never showed, I would say, any sort of undue fear or concern regarding the hand in the Netflix show, right? He knew Madame Gao and he had a sense of Nobu and they were connected to that organization. It never seemed to bother him that they were out there as he was kind of
No.
setting up his own power plays. So I don't know. I mean, D'Onofrio is still great. I mean, he can stay big as long in that white suit as long as he wants. It works. It still works.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. What do you think of? What did you think of the BB
Okay. Yeah.
vignettes of the news that she's giving? And is it her behind the Kingpin one that was shown towards the end?
Yeah, like the almost the
Yeah,
satirical
yes.
version of that. I thought that was the implication, but I'm not sure because that's pretty different content than what she's been putting out.
Yes.
They
And it's
retained this
bold.
device. Well, I was going to say, yeah, it's obviously much more antagonistic than anything her father would have done. That's for sure. They retained this device from season 1. I'm mixed on it. I see why they think it's necessary because they would argue Ben Urich was an old school streets reporter, source things the old fashioned way, versus they're trying to acknowledge, like, if you're Kingpin and you're the mayor of a city like New York, social media and new media would be kind of all over your every move, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
think that's fair. So I think they're trying to, like, strike the balance of, like, how do we acknowledge that and not be ignorant of it, but then have it connect meaningfully to the legacy of this show, and this is the character and the device that they've used. I think I need to see a little more specific payoff for her this season. Clearly, they've set something up with her quote unquote relationship with the guy on the inside. That's clearly meant to go somewhere. I think I need to see where that ends up for me to determine whether I liked this approach or not. Because,
Mhm.
I mean, Vonnie Curtis Hall was a tremendous addition to season 1 of Daredevil. Like, it's like one of those things where it's like the way he played Ben Urich was in some
It
ways
was
maybe
sad to
not
see
the
him go.
that's the thing. It was in some ways like I felt like he found an original way to do it to when his death was truly traumatic and shocking. And I was kind of like, wow, that was one of the first things where I was like, I can't believe they did that given the
Yes.
character's value to Daredevil in the comics.
Absolutely. Shout out to Tracy 4994. He also laments that death in that first season. He surely, like, I mean, if there was a reboot, he'd want that character back, but I doubt he'd be the same guy to play it.
But
Uh
I will say this, it was a bold choice, but the reason I liked it is because they had Kingpin do it himself.
yeah,
If he had sent his henchman to do it, I don't think the scene works. It works because Kingpin is menacing, but you're not sure if he's going to cross that line. And when he crosses that line, I think it really
that's it.
adds to how fearsome he is as a bad guy.
It was personal, so that's why he took care of it himself.
Yep.
Next week is going to be 2 episodes.
I saw that. So we'll have to see why they paced it out that way. I think until we get to that. But to me, my answer to that is, well, then just give us the first 3.
Yeah.
Like,
What's the
why not?
difference?
Yeah, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like if that's the break point. Yeah. We were spoiled back then, but I remember staying up like literally almost all night that first Friday or whenever it came out. Watched. I think I made it to like 8. The first 8 I knocked out before I was like, I'm too sleepy. I gotta something. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Those were the days. Those were the days.
Let me ask you about some of these. So Swordsman, and I'll put Bullseye in this category, right? Even though he's had a longer history in this show. We obviously get a sort of a cameo / tease of both. What do you expect or want to see Wilson Bethel do with Bullseye this season? Why do you think he, spoiler alert, did what he did at the end of this episode? And then I don't know, the Swordsman thing last season kind of just didn't really go a whole heck of a lot of places for me. And I have to admit that even dating back to Hawkeye's show, I felt like they were pulling this character from the comics but underutilizing him. So I'm still kind of sitting here waiting years later for like the payoff of Armand Duquesne. So like, just give me your take on where you think we're going with those two guys.
With Bullseye, I'm sure he believes that Matt and himself have the same foe that they want to that they're going against Kingpin. And they surely made it very suspenseful at the end because like, wow, this is the first episode and they've unmasked him and this guy comes and I didn't know who was going to save him, how he was going to get out. And I think they did a beautiful job in leaving that little nugget at the end with
You're welcome.
you're welcome. So that's going to be interesting to find out what that conversation is and why he's doing what he's doing. Again, they have a common foe. And so it'll be interesting to see and hear why he's doing what he's doing and what he's been doing all this time. And to find out that conversation, like, yo, why did you jump in front of, you know what I'm saying? I had him and you jumped in front of it, like,
in front of Kingpin.
So that conversation is going to be interesting.
I feel like most shows would have had Bullseye deliver that strike before the mask came off. I think the conventional wisdom would be like, oh, they're about to unmask him, and then the intervention happens. I did think it was interesting that they allowed the mask to come off before introducing that element. So you could say like, okay, well, nobody's seeing the face or whatever like that. But technically, what's his face? The detective is still alive, right? He's sort of in the midst of a heart attack. But like,
yes,
he does in theory witness the mask come off. And he
knows though, right?
I thought he did, right? I thought he already did, right? So wasn't it? Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting the way they sequenced that. But you're right. I think we need to see what Bullseye's agenda is for this inconsistency of, okay, he took out Foggy, ostensibly, tried to take out Kingpin, Matt gets in the way, and now he effectively saves Matt from, a pretty bad outcome, which would have been these guys knowing that was him. So
I mean, what was going through my mind when that was happening, I was like, oh snap, what happens here? Because I think they had a gun on him, and they were going to off him. Were they? Or they just talking
I thought
about?
I thought they were going to bring him in. I thought it was more the guy had the gun on him as like so he doesn't get away, but they were sort of in shock of like who it was, right?
Yeah. Well, Bullseye fixed that part, so
in theory, Matt now owes him something. And that's the other part of this.
And it's a conversation. That conversation is going to be interesting.
And then Swordsman, like, I guess, what do you want from this character at this point?
I have no idea. Because outside of, like, if you read up on him and who he was in the comics, he was Hawkeye's mentor.
Yeah, sensei, basically, yeah.
So outside of that, other than him being rich, I don't know what use he will serve in this show, but I'm curious to find out where they go with him. Hopefully they make it worth our while.
I have to say, like, in a very simplistic sense, doesn't he have to draw a sword and really use it? I mean, he basically has done one fencing scene with Haley Steinfeld, right? And it's kind of, he was toying with her. He wasn't really trying. I think at some point, don't we have to see him unveil that skill?
I think he did at some point, but it was more of not a goofy setting, but
it was like the end of Hawkeye. He doesn't do it in like we don't see him duel like a Nobu. We're not
awestruck at his skills.
He should be dueling like a Nobu level fighter and feeling like that guy is just as good, if not better. And I'm still waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
So things I have questions about and not sure of the value yet is the therapist Matt's ex and her sort of PTSD with Muse, only because I feel like that was not a part of season 1 that I necessarily enjoyed all that much. And I'm looking at the number of threads they're trying to pull on here.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that would have been fine with her character kind of just fading into the background.
Yeah.
So in my mind, they got to make it worthwhile why she kind of got that interrogation scene and the trauma she's going through and, and all of that. Because like I said, I have some questions. I'm skeptical a little bit about where that's going to fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if this was the way they were going to bring Muse back, because in the comics, he's I don't know if he's a mutant or something. He has some special powers,
Which he
but
did not have, right, in the season 1 of this. He wasn't
yes,
superpowered in this. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no, and he's apparently donezo, but still they're bringing him back in this sort of PTSD moment that she has, and perhaps will have throughout the series. But what purpose will it serve? I don't know. I don't know if too many people are very interested in that part of it. So we'll see where it goes. But they've introduced a lot of elements here. Let's see how it all plays out. Because
I think
again,
the other thing
it's 1 hour.
I'm fascinated to see the ratings for this, given that, remember, season 1, not a single episode made the top 10. Not one episode of this show made the top 10. And so I'm interested to see, like, with this release strategy, with this premiere, like, is that enough to get people back on board, paying attention to this? I mean, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are working 40-hour days basically to promote this. They are literally everywhere, to the point about people saying that certain other shows got the same degree of promotion as this. Like, there's an official companion podcast for this show, people. Like,
Yeah.
they care a lot about this working better than it did the last time around.
Yeah.
And as I said, I think they do in part because they are now linking this to one of the true moneymakers, which is Spider-Man. Like that,
Yes.
they can't afford to have third wheels on that train. So yeah. And we got I think it was, and I do believe them. I think the two of them said Bernthal's not in this season very purposefully. So even though he popped up last season just to let people know he's still around, because of the special, they very purposefully left him out of this season. But I think the thought is you're going to see something bridging you from one to the other. And like, we'll talk about it, but supposedly there's a credits teaser or something at the end of the Punisher special, which is really important for Brand New Day.
So yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys thought of the first episode of Daredevil Born Again season 2. What did you like? What did you dislike? What are you anticipating for the next set of episodes that are coming up before this season? And would you have liked to see all of them at once?
Where are you on where are you? So if I say, I'll ask it this way.
Mm-hmm.
If I said how you were feeling about the state of Daredevil at the end of season 3, if that's like your 10 out of 10, like that's how you're feeling about it, where are you on that scale after this episode? Figuring Born Again season 1 definitely shook your confidence, probably took you off that 10 a fair bit.
Oh yeah.
Where are you on that scale right now after premiere of season 2?
Hopeful.
Okay. Like 7,
Hopeful.
8, or like more like, hey, 5, 6, they gotta win me back more.
After this episode, I feel a sense of confidence that they're back on track.
Okay.
So I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, I probably put myself in like the 7-ish area. Like, I'm not all the way back, but this was probably better than I expected coming in. So
yeah, I'm around an 8, 9. Because again, if you watch season 3 of Daredevil, I think it was fantastic and excellently done. First half of season 2 was dope as well, with the Punisher. And obviously the first season was great as well. And they did what they were supposed to do the first time they announced this. And that was to bring everyone back. The people that created this, the showrunners and all that stuff. Instead, they said, we can do it ourselves. And look what we got.
Yeah,
and
they weirdly fell into the Sony trap of it all a little bit with this.
Yeah,
with this character. It's kind of what they did.
Go back, watch this first episode of Born Again season 2, and go back to the first one to see the difference, yo. See the difference. you'll spot it right away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The moment he comes swinging out of nowhere in that purple cloud, you'll see it. It's like, that's a CGI. That's a poor CGI fight.
It looks whack, yo.
By the way, we didn't
I wasn't
mention,
out at
go
that
ahead.
moment, but I was like, damn. I was like, this season's not gonna
It was
live
a
up
concern.
to what I. Yeah.
It was just that the way that's blocked, like that scene where it's like mostly purple. He comes out of the haze. He's fighting Bullseye in the bar or whatever it is, and you're like, that's different. Like, and not in a way that makes me fired up. So yeah, no, I agree. By the way, we didn't mention Karen, who obviously has got a little different lease on life these days. What'd you make of that? I mean, we knew the romance was coming. That's obviously happened in the comics before, but this idea of her as kind of, she clearly doesn't want to be damsel in distress anymore. So she's actually using the time with Matt to train. What'd you make of Deborah Ann Wool's take in this episode?
I always thought she was purposeful. And in this one, she has a purpose still as well, helping out Matt and, trying to be helpful in every way that she can. I was fine. She doesn't bother me yet.
I think
she hasn't bothered me.
He seems, I don't think I've heard Charlie Cox talk about this. He seems very at ease with her role in what he's doing, in a way that if you think back to the Netflix show, anyone who got involved, I think Rosario Dawson, Foggy, he was almost hyper protective of like wanting to push them out of it and being like, nah, this is bad for you. And like, it was notable to be like, when he comes home, it's like, she's his tag team partner, and he's cool with that. Like, they're sparring. He's giving her praise for like what she contributed with her sources. He's like, that was like an interesting, like, oh, okay, so you're giving Matt Murdock like a true rock at home that he actually doesn't seem fearful of losing every time he suits up.
But you got to just think, he lost Foggy. He was seemingly getting into a relationship with that therapist, and that went nowhere. She's the one that pretty much brought him back, right?
Well, not just nowhere, but I mean, like, Muse attacks the therapist, right? He starts to get sort of close to Claire in the first season. She gets kidnapped by the Russians, like within one episode. Like, it's like, he is traumatized by this. It was almost weird to see him like just trading one-liners with Karen about like, oh, this is what I was doing down at the ship. Stay at the ship. Like, it's all good. Like, yeah.
But yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys thought of the first episode. And yeah, remember to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Nerd Gen Report.